I'm Wendy Feinberg, co-director of the Port Jefferson documentary series. Hope you enjoyed watching our closing night film, the very entertaining, amazing Born into the Gig. I am thrilled that we have directors Kate Davis and David Heilbroner, producer Tamara Weiss, and two of the very talented subjects featured in the film, Chris Stills and Sally Taylor, with us for tonight's Q&A. As we have a lot to cover, let me introduce our moderator, Tom Needham of the Sounds of Film on WUSB Radio, so we can get right to it. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Wendy. And thank you for all of you today for joining me for this Q&A. I have individual questions for each and every one of you, but before we get started with those questions about the movie, maybe each of you could just tell our viewers where you're located right now and how each of you are handling this pandemic at the moment.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I'll
Tamara.
jump right in. I'm saying hello to all of you and thank you so much for having our film in the Port Jefferson Film Festival. It's really an honor to be your closing night film. I'm saying hello from Chilmark, Massachusetts, on the island of Martha's Vineyard. And how is it going? Doing okay, minus fear for humanity and the planet, but myself personally, I'm good. I've got my grown boys with me, so it's really lovely to spend time with my kids.
Good. Kate and David, maybe?
We are in Danbury, Connecticut. Sort of escaped from the city in March, and like Tamara's situation, we are in a lovely bubble, but I limit my news because it's scary out there and nobody knows the outcome of this from day to day. Actually, nobody knows. The information shifts, but I'm hopeful that humanity will come out all the wiser.
What she said.
Sally?
Hi, I'm Sally Taylor, and I'm sort of chiming in here from the border of Canada, just in case I have to make a run for it. I'm actually up at a friend's house in Maine, near Sugarloaf Mountain, and it's pretty lovely up here. And I think even if there wasn't a pandemic, we would only see one person every other week. So we're pretty well holed up here, but I think that there's sort of this fluctuating anxiety, and it's sort of the undercurrent, but it comes and goes all day long. I sort of feel great, and then I feel terrible, and then I feel afraid, and I would just say it's sort of life, the normal amount, with like a little added pandemic cherry on top. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thanks. And Chris, how about you?
Well, hello, Port Jefferson from Los Angeles, California. I'm Chris Stills. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us, and congratulations for going through your event. And I'm sure it was amazing, and certainly honored to be the closer. No pressure. Let's see, COVID for us has been fascinating and terrifying. I think I've had COVID about 59 times since the beginning of COVID in my mind. With the slight coughs, I've taken my temperature about 600 times. I have been, and I've been living with my girlfriend, her 4-year-old son, and my 2 daughters, off and on. We've been going back and forth between families. We should have a webinar of its own, how to manage back and forth stuff with parents. 3 homes, I think we're doing at this point.
Wow.
But success, no coronavirus here, and healthy as can be, and happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that everyone is doing okay health-wise, and I know it can be very tough professionally. That's why we're having a virtual film festival here, because people can't go to the movies right now. But let's talk about Born into the Gig. Tamara, let's start with you. You're the producer. One of the things that I've discovered in talking to a lot of filmmakers about documentaries is that sometimes the lines of the roles of what every person does can be a little unclear from film to film. So why don't you just tell the audience as the producer of the film, one of the producers. What exactly was your role and why you wanted to make this movie?
That's a big question, and I'll keep it tight because it'll be really interesting to hear from our stars, Sally and Ben. I have known the beautiful Sally Taylor and her family since she was a child. I used to work for her dad, James, and I grew up near her mom, Carly. So I knew the family, and I watched those kids grow up to be the amazing adults that they are. And it occurred to me that they have a very interesting journey that they have been on, and being the children of such enormous legends, yet choosing to possibly go into the same career as their parents, and what that must be like for them. And there are a lot of kids of celebrity musicians, of artists, of writers. We were particularly interested in this group because we love their music. We connected with Corey and Chris and Sally and Ben and Skip Marley. And I am friends with Kate and David and mentioned it to them on a walk one day in the woods in Chilmark, and they said, let's do it. We decided to really focus on the younger generation, what it was like for them and their journey, and hopefully people just witness that tonight.
Very good. Kate and David, it's very unusual on a movie for there to be two directors, let alone a couple. How did the two of you get involved in this movie? And maybe explain to our viewers a little bit about how the two of you work together, the pros and cons of having two people, steering the project.
Well, it's not unusual for us to have co-directors. This is probably our 12th film, so
Right.
This is how we operate. We have made films separately and a bunch of times, but I think the overriding thing is the film comes first. You put your personal relationships aside. We never really fight over the film. If we get mad at each other, it's like, I didn't like the way you said "pass the salt." Like, what did you mean by that? So, hey, is that Bodhi?
Yeah, hi.
What color is your hair, Bodhi?
It was blue, but I got it like a long time ago, like just before Christmas. So now it's really grown in. So I don't know if you can call it blue anymore.
Looking good, buddy.
Thanks.
But Katie and I each bring pretty different skill sets at the same time. Maybe you want to talk about what you think those are.
Well, I would say I'm a little bit more of the sort of microscopic level filmmaker where I will fuss over every shot and love editing, and it takes a lot of patience to weave a film together. Sally's a little bit like your mosaics or something. It's just not for everybody. It might drive a lot of people crazy, or imagine weaving a tapestry, right? So and David can stay in the big picture mode a little more, and you deal with producerial things really well. David and Tamara have dealt with a lot. This is a really complicated film with 5 different, major subjects, all from, different parts of the world, playing different kinds of music. And so it was a really complex weave. And so I think that's where our roles sort of, I'm in the weeds and you're, the farmer kind of going, don't get lost,
Well, Sally, it must have been a difficult choice to agree to be in a movie like this. You never know how these things are going to go, even when you have the best filmmakers, like it seemed like you did, who you trusted. Did you have any ground rules at all for agreeing to be in this movie? And if so, like, what were some of the things maybe that you didn't want covered or that you did want covered? What was your motivation for doing this as well?
Thanks for asking that, Tom. And I was smiling just because I did feel like I had some ground rules when I started. And Tamara, I believe that I was the first person that she came to with the idea and said, hey, what would you think about doing something like this? And I remember thinking that if anybody was going to do it, and if anybody, if I would be willing to talk to anybody about it, trust anybody, it would be her. And because I've grown up with her and I know her. And the thing that I said to Tamara then, and then to Kate and David when they signed on as well, was I think it's really important to let everybody know that they will have last say of what goes in. And the reason I said that was because I wanted everybody to feel as though they could express everything right off the top of our heads instead of having to filter what we were going to say so that it would be an authentic film. And I think that the reason that I recommended that to them was I think so much of our lives are filtered, you know, how we express who we are and how we express our relationship to our parents is filtered through this. How should this come across? How can I say this so that other people won't be, you know, so that I can protect the king and queen, so to speak. You know, how do we protect, you know, how we're sort of the guards, you know, the first rank guards along with managers and agents and people like that. So I think that there's always this sort of like, how do we protect them while being authentic? And I think that I wanted everybody to feel like they could talk. I wanted to feel like I could talk without thinking, oh my God, how is this going to be manipulated so that, you know, I'm either unsafe or they're unsafe. And so I think that as soon as they were like, yeah, of course, like we're not going to put anything in this that you don't give the okay to, I felt really like, okay, I'm going to spill it. I'm just going to say what it was really like. And I think that comes across.
And you don't have to tell me what it was, but were there any things that you said that you were like, please take that out?
You know, there was some things that I think I said that never actually made it into the film anyway, that I would have felt uncomfortable about going in. But overall, I think that, you know, I think that they were really sensitive and tender to the things that we felt were sort of out of bounds, and maybe even to the detriment of the film. I don't know. But I think that, you know, they cared about us first, our music second, and then our relationships with our families third, before they cared about the film or the public. And I greatly appreciate that and respect that. And I, you know, can't say enough about who I think that they are as authentic and honest human beings.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Yeah. Chris, I was wondering what your motivation was for being in the movie. I know myself, after I watched the film, I instantly went on Spotify and I started looking up everybody's music. I've been listening to a lot of your music, great stuff from all of you.
Thank you.
What was your main motivation to tell your story? Was it to get your music more well-known? Not that it needs to be that much more well-known, but what was driving you to want to be part of this film?
That's a great question, because it's hard. It's an interesting, I mean, from the get, you know, this is sort of some kind of sort of jacuzzi to get into with a bunch of people, you know what I mean? You know, do you want bubbles or do you not want bubbles? You just want to sit, like, we play some music too? What's up? You know, are we drinking? Are we not drinking? You know, I had Tamara, I met through my friend, and also who's a contributor and helper on the film, was Amy Brenneman. And Amy Brenneman called me and she said, please meet my friend Tamara Weiss and just talk to her. I know that probably how you feel about this stuff. And I had a long conversation with Tamara, and I actually enjoyed talking to her, and we soon became, on the phone right then and there, fast friends. And she just told me about Martha's Vineyard. So I'll tell you, my primary motivation to be in this film was to get an opportunity to visit Martha's Vineyard. And I was like, I'll do your movie if you invite me out there and like show me around and give me like a place to stay in Martha's Vineyard. That was pretty much it. But just to get a little bit back to what I was saying before about dipping the toe in the pool, you know, it's like, how do you make a movie and talk about things and around a subject that is actually, you know, like Sally brought up, very protected and very, there's a lot of effort that goes into what kind of information is disseminated, who gets it, when, how, you know, even questions and answers, Q&As are gone over with a fine-tooth comb. And for me, it was like, okay, I like who I'm working with. I like what I'm doing. Sure, I could get some promotion out of this for my career and get some eyeballs on me. That's always a consideration, but whatever. It is a chance to tell a story, and it's a fascinating one to me. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I always just try and live by a principle: say what you mean, but don't say it mean, and mean what you say, you know, but don't say it mean. And how can I talk about my crazy, insane childhood without throwing anybody under the bus?
Right.
Like, you know, how do I express myself and tell enough of the truth so that you'll get the point, but I'm not going to make anybody look too bad? And that was always my game in my head. Like, how do I do that? How do I protect the ones that I love and also kind of be honest about what really happened? And it's a bit of a dance. And I think, you know, hats off to Kate and Dave and Tamara for being very respectful of maintaining a certain level of privacy, but also, you know, having us understand that we needed to dig in and share some stuff. And that was a big thing. And I think hats off also to Sally and Ben and Corey and Skip for letting them in. And I think that's what makes the movie so fascinating, because we're seeing behind sort of the, not the Iron Curtain, but the stage
Yeah.
curtain, and like we're seeing into backstage and all how all that stuff works. So, you know, I think they did a great job, and the movie is honest and it's raw and it's, you know, it's a beautiful film. So that's what I did. I'll stop talking now.
I'll just add that Chris and Sally in particular were completely, totally open to working with us. They let us into their homes. They have both parents still alive today, and we're really, you know, just we're game. They were just ready to go, and we completely adore them. And now Sally and Chris have become brother and sister.
Totally.
They needed another sibling, so that happened, and that came out of it as well. So
We're totally
the proud
a tribe. It's a tribe. We
is.
found a tribe. I've found like total East Coast Martha's Vineyard tribe, familia, like just Sally, Ben, everybody, Corey. You know, the only one I never met was Skip. Haven't met him,
Yeah.
but everybody else, like, really amazing. I love him. Kate and Dave. I mean, like, it's awesome. So.
Yeah, I miss those Parisian meals we had, Chris. I'll tell you, I got to be honest.
I mean, it's kind of like at this point we're not allowed to talk about Europe in the house for a while. It's like we can't. It's so depressing. It's like we've got,
you know what?
I miss movies.
Okay, yeah, to be more specific, I miss any restaurant. So let's just move on. But I also want to say that because of your openness and the dance you played so thoughtfully, you know, and Sally, you know, you speak of it also as a kind of, you know, managing, you know, the king and queen is so well put, but also really being there for the film and understanding that this is, you know, a kind of slice of life that is multi-layered and I think breaks stereotypes. I mean, that's part of why I wanted to make the film, is because I think that in general, or any documentary that I partake in, generally there's a level of, you know, going into it thinking, you know, people just don't get it, whatever it is, and I'm going to discover that along the way. My sense is that a general public has superficial notions of what it's like to be you guys, and you know,
totally.
they make up their mind. And so it's really different to meet you and to feel the nuance and hear your specific stories and feel the love and the, you know, sometimes occasional abandonment and the, you know, complexity of trying to then be a creative artist and finding your voice. And but despite, or maybe because of the specificity of your stories and also your openness in telling them, I think that what really I'm left with feeling proud of in this film is a sense that an audience, what we felt, what we've experienced in our screenings is that people can see universal meaning from your stories and then
Yeah.
relate to you, not like, it's almost the opposite of, well, I can't, I can't touch, you're not untouchable. That we all are in the shadow. We all have parents that we never escape from, even if they're dead, and I just love that part of the film, that you've found your voice, and that's, to me, what it's about.
I can't wait for you guys to make Born Into the Gig 2, so I can watch a bunch of other kids and be like, they're so weird. They seem so weird to me. Oh, like I won't say any kids' family. It's Michael Jackson. It's fascinating. Like,
Sally, you tell a great story in the movie. One of my favorites, when you were younger and you went to Europe, and you were just trying to fit in with some other young people that you met. And it wasn't until you revealed who your parents were that people started to show an interest. And I think that's sort of a universal story. I mean, to a much lesser extent, I think I mentioned to some of you before, I'm involved with the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. And I've seen that like a little bit myself, very little. But like if people find out like, oh, I know this person or that person, you're all in the entertainment business. I'm sure you've experienced this. Sometimes that will get interest in people. But it makes you question whether people are really interested in you. And so much of what this film gets into is that search for one's own identity, being able to know that people are appreciating you and your art for yourself. And Sally, that was a great story. And I was wondering if you could just expand a little bit on that theme.
Yeah, I remember that trip. It was actually an intentional trip across Europe by myself to actually discover who I was without their identity attached to me, and who, how I was perceived by others without their sort of shadow on me. And that's why it was so interesting to me that I found myself in certain situations bringing up their name, because it felt so uncomfortable to be, to be valued in a way that I wasn't familiar with, because I was used to sort of this applause wherever I went. It was very difficult to walk into a situation where I wasn't being immediately sort of paid attention to, or, being given some sort of adulation that I obviously didn't deserve by nature of my own sort of personality. So it was interesting to me that I was bringing up my parents' name, and immediately upon doing so, I would be so embarrassed that I'd done it, especially when my whole hidden agenda was to go and be myself, unencumbered and vulnerable. And so I think that the thing that I realized, and especially since having said that in the film, is that I think that everybody suffers from a feeling of detachment and of separation, and wanting to be valued and feel worthy of love. I think everybody has that to some extent. And I think maybe we're all born with a slightly different default based on how much we are loved by our communities and our families when we're born. And yet there's this sort of expectation of how am I supposed, how am I supposed to be receiving love? What do I deserve? And then what do I not deserve? And so I think that it's always this question of how valuable am I, and how valuable should I be, and how valuable am I, what value does it appear that other people have for me? And I don't care who you are. I think that that's sort of something weird about fame, is about maintenance. That once you get a certain amount of applause, if you're not receiving that on a, day-to-day basis, it feels like the expectation that you have of your value has been undermined. And then you have to, constantly keep up on this treadmill. And I think that that's true maybe of all of us, and it's just this desire to feel connected, and then worthy of that connection and worthy of that love. So I don't think that that's specific to any of us who are in the film, but I do think that maybe we're born with a certain expectation around how people are going to value us based on when we were, you know, how we were born and the circumstances under which we, you know, received the first sort of blessings from our community. And having had that is it's a high bar to set. And then to go into, I'm talking too much, but then going to Europe and not getting that reinforcement felt like, oh my God, I'm completely, I don't have any value. I feel like I don't have any value. I better mention my parents so that I can feel that value again. And I think that that's just like, and it, you know, I think it, you know, it just comes, there's that great Schopenhauer sort of hedgehog's dilemma thing where, you know, the hedgehogs are cold. And so they bundle together as a group to find warmth, and then they prick each other and run away. And I think it is that is the nature of the human condition of, you know, wanting that comfort, wanting that warmth and security, and then, you know, bristling at the fact that we needed it at all to begin with. So.
Sure. Well, I'll ask the filmmakers, was it difficult for you? Because on one hand, you have a responsibility to make this movie that's going to be successful. You know probably that there's going to be this interest out there, and seeing some footage of everyone's famous parents and getting little insights into people's homes. But at the same time, that's exactly not what this movie is all about.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you did it. Like, how did you strike a balance between giving a little bit of that, what was necessary, but at the same time respecting that this is really a movie about something completely different?
I mean, I think it's a lot like the hedgehog thing that Sally was talking about. It was
Yeah.
our hedgehog dance. You know, we wanted Chris and Sally and Ben and Corey and Skip to open up about some of the most sensitive things you can ever ask anybody on camera. You know, tell me how you feel about your mom and dad and what it was like growing up with them, and what are the issues that have maybe perhaps plagued you or made you happy, but a lot of them didn't make our subjects happy. You've seen the film. And to ask somebody to do that when you know you're going to show it in front of an audience of strangers, you're asking people to be in a very vulnerable space. So I think I'm really happy to hear that Sally and Chris felt like we balanced that thing. But we wanted to push them to be open and figure out what was there. But you also, I guess, and as Sally said at the beginning, you know, they had to know that there was a safety net. You know, that we weren't just going to throw everybody under the bus and do some, you know, Entertainment Tonight awful special about the failings of famous people. You know, because we all have failings. So we had to figure out what's really relevant, what's really important. You know, it's not just the bad things parents have done. Regrettable. I have kids, so I know how easy it is to do bad things as a parent. And they were so it was a very delicate balance. I'm glad it works for people. You know, it's really heartening. We were trying to hit universal themes. We all have parents. This cohort happens to have parents under a microscope that's extremely intense.
Also, I think, you know, we had to show, this was about the kids. This was about the children of these well-known musicians, but who are also musicians themselves. But you have to show a little bit of who these parents are so that you can see where the bar is being set.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in the whole cast really talked about what it's like to share their own love as a child with their parents, with millions of people. I mean, everybody really touched on that. And that alone is just a really interesting thing. Most families, it's the parents and the kids, and that's it. And when you're in a family like Sally and Chris have, there's a lot of other people who love your mommy and daddy too, you know. So that's something that they have to wrestle with. And I think, again, they spoke quite beautifully to that in the film.
It's funny. I think just to touch upon that a little, it's interesting because in life in general, right? It just taking the parents out of it and just on a broader sense, it's all about who you know. It doesn't matter where, you know, you just kind of, it's in the entertainment business. It's like, who do you know? Like, it's all about like, what relationships do you have? And like, I don't know, like in the cheese thing, you know, it's like in my life growing up, I always had, you know, I had this we have our parents, we all have our parents that do these jobs, but at home, their families and whatever. And like, you know, when my mom would come home from the road and be away from people, like she would be into things. Like she would love to go to the flea market. She loved to cook, you know, she loved to do, like, there was this separation of what's kind of more normal and whatnot. But like, I always found that fascinating. But then as far as like flipping that around and seeing like where you find value for yourself, like that was her finding value for herself. That's what she's into. And that's what made her feel good as a person. She didn't need anything else than that. And the accolades and all that stuff and the sort of eyes on and that sense of self-worth that you get out of that is something like that, you know, I think I grew up trying to separate. And I always separated those two things. I had one parent who was, that's all it was about, really. And I had another one that was more about life and continuing on and traditions and more of a familial atmosphere. And that was kind of the job. And it was an interesting thing. But I totally ran into that. I would run into that thing of like, do I drop it? Do I drop the little mic bomb in this little party social atmosphere? Because I know it's going to work. I know it's going to be, everybody's going to be like, wait, who are you? Huh? Like, let me get everybody's attention. Let me make it really about me, because you know what? I can. I have that kind of little thing. I have like this ace in my back pocket that I can pull and be like, you guys have no idea. There's a certain power in there. There's the fact that Sally went to Europe to go find that, to go look for that. I get it. I totally understand. Like, I want to be divorced from that shit. I don't want to have to think about it. I want to find myself for who I am. What am I about? We all had to grow up with that. I think regardless, it's like, I don't know how I'm sort of reaching in my mind for this relation of where to find self-worth in a cheese shop with versus like, versus with famous parents, or whatever it is, you walk in, it's like, I know the best baker in town. Really? Tell me, like, let's look at you. I know the best this, I know the best that. It's just a thing that people do. It's like, well, my parents just happen to be like iconic, like change the lives of many people, and like they're just praised and loved and adored to a fault sometimes, when it becomes dangerous and we have stalkers and like it gets weird. But and it's just that trying to make sense of that, trying to like walk that path, and where there's no book on that, there's no instruction manual. We have managers that protect, and it's like, don't talk to that person, like, we have protectors that are out there trying to like help and do that for us, to a fault sometimes, because we let other people give power away and let them do it for us, where we just have no care in the world and are void of all responsibility. And it's like, whatever, I'm famous, I can do whatever I want, or using it as an excuse. And again, that inner journey of self, it's like, we try to have these extra curricular mental I want to use swear words right now, but it's like these mental, like, like, this is enough to drive anyone nuts. But I think, music was our outlet. We related to our parents. We found the magic of music. I certainly did. And I found certain point in my life, I didn't care anymore. I was going to do my thing. I was going to just, and I just, you find it, but that self-worth thing it's a tricky little MFer,
Yeah.
and it's for us, I think, it's like, we have big shadows over us, and we're trying to kind of break out of that shadow. How do we do that?
Let me ask you, I once heard a business person talk about how he had no plans of giving his kids any of his money, because he was concerned that if he did, that they wouldn't be able to make it on their own. Now, this is not something that you guys get into directly in the movie. I'm just kind of curious, both with you, Chris and Sally. But there's a lot of good stuff in this movie about trying to make it in the music business. And it's very tough. It's tough for anybody. And that's one of the things that's really clearly demonstrated in this film. And I was wondering, just in your own general, experience, is is it something that is harder, do you think, when you're coming from a family that's already successful in any way to make it in the music business? I don't know, because some people say you have to be hungry. You have to be, you have to have an experience in life that was tragic, or, I mean, I would say probably anyone can have experiences that they can draw from. Any kind of person has pain and happiness and so forth. But I was wondering, from both of your own points of view, does it hurt you in any way coming from a good home or a home of success?
Sally, you want to go first?
Okay.
Who wants to take
Oh,
this
shit.
one?
Okay, so
That's a hot potato.
yeah, I wasn't going to relate it directly to music. I was just sort of thinking as you were speaking, Tom, about what success looks like. And again, I think that, I don't know, I heard it somewhere along my journey through life that by the age of 6, you've inherited your parents' internal dialogues. And that, to me, I think what comes with that, along with, the historical narrative that, strains through each of our ancestries, I think along with that comes sort of this preset for what success is going to look like. And so I think that, my parents' probably were more successful than their parents' and my parents were more successful than their parents. And so the buck stopped with them. They said, like, there is no way that in the public eye that I will ever be more successful than my parents. And so I think where that leads me, the blessing that leaves me with, is what does real success mean to me? And in this time of coronavirus, right, when there's very little possibility of external success motivated action, I think the opportunity for me and a lot of people I've been speaking with is this sort of, what is a quieter life? What does a smaller life look like? And how can that be successful? And that it becomes a metaphor maybe for my own experience, which is that, my appetite for success has never really been huge. And it's not because, people have thought, okay, you should be bigger. you should be more successful, right? You have not one parent, but 2 parents, who were able to achieve this sort of superstardom. Like, you've got everything you need, like good genes, now go. Like, you got the ultimate firecracker and you go to light it, with all the might that you have, and you find out you have the dud, and it's this sense of like embarrassment and letdown and shame around it. And then a reevaluation of what really did I want in that firecracker? Like what would have actually been the big bang for me? And it turns out to be like reading in a hammock and helping kids with finding connection and self-esteem and self-worth, because I know how that feels to struggle with that. And it turns out to be things like looking directly into my son's eyes for 3 minutes a day at the very least. And it turns out to be things like writing songs and then putting them in a closet where they can hibernate and live by themselves. And having tea with friends in coffee shops and seeing them 3-dimensionally. And,
knowing the best cheesemaker.
And knowing the best cheesemaker. I mean, that's actually not one on my bucket list, but there are these things that are, smaller life fits me better. And so my hunger for success doesn't have to be as big, because I like a smaller life, as it turns out.
That's good. And what about you, Chris?
Oh my, it's a never-ending thing. I think my definition of success and my understanding of it sort of changed when I had kids, and the whole sort of idea that there's a big portion of my life, it's not about me anymore, kind of refocus stuff. I think Sally, so true about you. You love your kids so much, and we got lucky. We got to make them, and I could, that success part of the other, the other side of it, the personal, that thing. Yeah, totally. Big giant firecracker. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened? And then listen, it who knows what that firecracker would have been. For some people, it was a torturous affair. Fame, and it's just terrible. All those eyes on you, all they want to do is out. Like, I always laugh, like coronavirus, like all the celebrities are stoked. Everybody has to wear a mask now. Like, they could just go out in public and they don't have to worry anymore. Like, my dad, like, I was like, well, so lots changed for you. Like, stay at home and stay out of the public. Like, that's it. Like, you don't have to change much, I just love, I have what I love in this world. I love my kids. I love my family. I have a true, like, it calls me. My success really is not dependent on, I don't know. It's like, what makes me happy? Like, I am happy on stage commanding it. I am happy on stage, like, connecting with other musicians. I'm happy singing my guts out. And I'm happy when I reach out and touch someone, and when somebody understands a song that I wrote, like something that I shared from my life or my story or my thing, and it changes their lives in a positive way. That is success. I heard a song, I'll never forget it. It's called Trouble. And the trouble has fallen on you, but the trouble will make you strong. And this woman wrote me, and she said, my husband was beating me and my kid, and I heard that song, and it gave me the strength to leave the guy. Wow. And that, I'm sorry, but like, it's like, that's cool. Like, that's cool. But that's one little success. Like, all the rest, like, I don't know, we have choices in life. We get to pick and choose our battles. We get so many options. It's like, I get to choose how I spend my time most of the time. Sometimes I got to do stuff I don't like. If I could do something for 12 hours, I could keep it up for a lifetime knowing that I didn't have to, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's again, it's tricky. Yeah, we definitely, like I said, we have a big shadow. We have big shoes to fill on that stuff. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I'll say that. And I will keep it there. I'll just, next question, moving on.
Okay. Well, it's funny when I look at both of you and listen to what you just said. I recently saw a bunch of shows related to universal basic income. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So an idea that they're floating around that in the future.
We're musicians. That doesn't exist. That was taken away with the internet.
Idea that in the future jobs might be eliminated. Not everyone agrees with this, but that people will just receive a basic income. And one of the things that they hope might come out of it is that people will then be free to pursue their art, their music, filmmaking, whatever they might want. And they won't have necessarily the pressure to come up with something that's commercial. They won't have to sell, but it'll be something that's authentic and genuine to them. And that maybe that's what the future might bring. And it's encouraging to see the two of you valuing your family and your music and your art for things that are just the right reasons, it seems. At least that's the way it's presented. I don't know you that well. That's the way it seems in the movie. I know we have to wrap this up. Really quickly, if each of you can just tell me what has been the most rewarding aspect of this whole experience and the movie being seen by people. We'll start with the filmmakers maybe first.
Tamara?
The most rewarding aspect of the film was really what Chris said earlier for us, for me personally, bringing this tribe together of people. We just all love each other so much, and that was one outcome. And I think for the audience to love the music and our cast as much as they do, and to be able to relate to their own lives by watching the bravery of Sally and Chris and the others talk, it's incredible. The conversations we have with people after the film. As Sally said, we were just born into this gig. We didn't pick it, and they did a pretty good job living in it, I have to say.
I mean, for me, I mean, I don't know if I can rank them like most or least, but one of the things that I really loved about making this film was getting to know the music from all the characters, really sinking into it. I listened to every one of your albums, all you guys, you know, all your songs, and they're so good. And it was just so much fun to like really have this great musical journey and have these revelations of songs that aren't necessarily right in the center of the public eye. You're not, you know, doing Miley Cyrus level concerts yet, though you probably should be. But it's just great. It was a great, and it made me feel like so excited that people could, you know, you will maybe help you expand your audience and get your stuff out there. And just on a personal level, it was really rewarding. So I loved that part of it. And, you know, thank you all for being as brave and as talented as you are. And maybe the fact that you spoke up so bravely in the film is tied to the fact that you were brave enough to want to become musicians given your heritage, you know?
It's true. The whole thing was, yeah, an exercise in courage. I think Tamara, it was very courageous of you to even want to do this film, truly. It's much easier to sort of keep people in their spheres, in their world, and I think we wanted to communicate something, and the people who chose to be in this film wanted to communicate something and break out of a bubble and feel like there's, you know, have their stories told and reach people who otherwise they may never meet. And there were some really cool moments in Nashville. This woman just cried. You know, she got up in the audience and talked about her own experience. And then I heard from people who said, "Oh, we went home and we're still talking about it." You know, and people related, as I said before. The film, as rarefied as your experiences growing up were, also really touch on very universal themes that, strangely, many of us don't stop to ruminate over. So this film gives people that chance.
Mm-hmm.
Sally?
I would reiterate what Tamara was saying, just you know, about the tribe and just us all finding each other. I think that something really special happens when people identify with one another. And that happens when you start to share your secrets. They say you're only as sick as your secrets. And I think that kids of celebrities have a lot of secrets. They feel like they need to hide their fears and their shame and their unworthiness, etc. And I think that when we all come together and have the opportunity to identify with one another, especially at our lowest base, you know, denominator, you know, our humanity and who we are, and the base needs that we have to be loved, to be valued, to be seen, to be heard, to be, you know, just broken and beautiful, that something really magical can happen and healing can happen, and just recognition of our humanity and feeling connected. And I think that that's ultimately what we're all looking for, you know, celebrity brat or not. That's what we all are seeking, I think. And so I'm really grateful for that, for finding my tribe to identify with and to be broken with.
That's great. And last but not least, Chris.
Well, again, yes, with Tamara too. I mean, the greatest thing is, I mean, we're talking about lifelong friendships here. This is, you know, my life was going this way, and then, you know, but total change of course, and I look forward to watching us all grow, and we're all gonna grow old together. So weird. I would say that you know, I said earlier, you know, it's all about who you know, and all that good stuff, how you look, all that stuff. It's all kind of bullshit, but it's kind of more about how do you feel about who and what you know. And you know, I said we're big shoes to fill, but I'm all about just trying to, you know, if this was an exercise in me getting to a place where I'm comfortable in those shoes, then awesome, you know. And if this can help anybody else feel comfortable in their shoes, awesome. Like let's, you know, we all got our shit, you know, we all have our stories. We all got the gay uncle and the drunk friend and the thing and the, you know, everybody's got their weirdness in their life. No matter what level, you know, try and go hanging out with the billionaire club and try hanging out with in a trailer park, and the issues are all there. They'll never change. That's the universal theme to me. And I just think that's why being comfortable in your own shoes is just where it's at. It's just, and I think we're gonna grow together. We're gonna, you know, it's progress, not perfection, you know.
Well, this doesn't always happen. This doesn't always happen on movies like this. It's amazing how so many of you have grown so fond of one another. So
yeah, usually people hate each other. They're like,
ew,
I'm never working with that person again.
Super cool.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being so candid today and sharing your stories and making this movie. I really loved it, and I want to wish all of you continued success, and hopefully we can all do this again sometime in the future with different projects. But it was really a pleasure speaking to each of you. So we're going to turn it back to Wendy now, but thanks again, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So great to see all these wonderful geek people whom I love.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Sally.
Feels great.
Wonderful. Tamara, Kate, and David, you guys look great. So nice to meet you. Tom and Wendy.
Night, John.
Thank you guys very
Thanks,
much
Tom
for
and Wendy.
having us.
Yeah, you guys are
Wonderful.
lovely.
Thank you, Kate, David, Tamara, Chris, Sally, and Tom for the very personal and enjoyable Q&A. And
Great.
Thank you,
to all
Wendy.
who attended our first ever online doc series. I wish our guest speakers and everybody who is out there good health, and look forward to a time when we will feel comfortable being with one another in person. Good night to all.
Good night.
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 Good
Thank
night.
you.